and welcome back to another episode of The Story Behind the Photograph. Today we're going to be talking about this photo that you see behind me if you're watching the video, or the one you see on your screen if you're listening to the podcast. This is a photo of the Ogden Valley, or Ogden, Utah, actually the city, as well as Ogden Valley reaching over to Cache Valley to the north. It's a panoramic photo of the Milky Way. And this was taken in May of 2014. And this is probably one of my most favorite photographs that I've ever taken. If somebody asked me, hey, what's your photograph? This is probably in the top 3. So I'm really excited to tell you guys the story behind the photograph today. And it all started back in 2013, actually. I had wanted to get up and do some winter camping in on my break between Christmas and New Year. So I called up my brother, my younger brother, and I said, "Hey, let's go hiking on Ben Lomond and camp up there." So being young and ambitious as we were, actually not very young. I think I was 31 and he was 29 or something. But being young and ambitious as we were, we decided, let's go for it. We haven't been backpacking or hiking for a couple of years, but what's 8 or 10 miles in the snow up to the peak of Ben Lomond when we're out of shape and in the winter. No big deal. So we hiked up and we got about maybe 2 miles. If you know the trail, we got up to basically the top of the switchbacks, and then we started heading west towards the ridge line, where you hike along the ridge over to Ben Lomond. So we are about maybe a quarter of the way, a fifth of the way to the peak. And it took us a long time. And we both realized that we were both severely out of shape. So we decided to just make camp, and we'll just hike up without the backpacks and sleeping bags and tent and stuff, and do some pictures. So we hiked up just a little ways, set up our camp. I'll share a photo here of our little campsite that we basically dug into the snow, put the tent, pitched the tent up, made a fire, and just kind of hung out. And as we were sitting there, I attempted a couple star photos, night photos, and I thought, wow, we could really see some stars up here. It'd be a pretty cool place to come and attempt a Milky Way shot in the summer when the Milky Way was out. So it kind of that night, that experience was what sparked this idea of getting a Milky Way photo from Ben Lomond, the peak or near the peak of Ben Lomond. And so I thought, well, being winter, December, the core of the Milky Way wasn't out yet. It was still below the horizon. So I thought, I'm going to come back in, April, May, June, sometime in the summer or something, when it's a little bit warmer, there's less snow, and I can attempt that shot. So it was a fun. That trip was a fun trip. I'll show you a couple photos here that we got from that I took from the next morning, which are, again, some of my favorite ones. I really like these shots of Ben Lomond. I got some kind of pre-dawn shots. And so fast forward a couple of months. It was the May 1st, May 2nd, end of April, I think, is when I sent out a message or a post on Facebook and said, hey, is anybody out there crazy enough to go try this with me? And none of my photographer friends at the time could either make it or were crazy enough. They thought, you're nuts to go try this, go winter camping, no way. But there was one guy that sent me a message and said, I'm down. I like your photos. That's pretty cool that you go out to some of these places. I'm down, and if it's okay that I learn some Milky Way photography, because I haven't really done it a whole lot. So I said, yeah, for sure. So his name is John Hart. Mad props to John Hart for being crazy enough to go out with me on this first attempt. So it was a Friday afternoon. like most of my adventures start out over a quick weekend trip. So we headed out on the trail, and we just started hiking. I think we just left after work, so after 5 o'clock. And again, the goal was to try and get as far as we can up the trail. Well, again, I found out I was still pretty out of shape, but John was also very out of shape. So we got up to a little bit further than where my brother and I had camped. And so we got up, and we ended up taking some sunset shots and things just kind of along the ridge line. It was nowhere near Ben Lomond Peak. And then we waited for the stars to come out. And while we were waiting there, it started getting really cloudy, and it was just, we thought we were going to be skunked. So we just kind of hung around the campfire. We don't think we even took tents. I think we took a sleeping pad. I think I had a sleeping pad and a shovel. And I think we just kind of slept on the snow. It was actually pretty warm that night. We had a fire, and it was just kind of keeping us warm throughout the night. So that was kind of nice. It was a cool experience. And then we kept kind of like dozing off around the fire. And then I want to say it was around 2:15, 2:30 in the morning. I woke up, and I kind of looked up at the sky and went, hey, it looks like it might be clearing. So I said, hey, John, let's go down and let's try and get some shots. So we walked about, 50 yards or so from our little campfire that we had built in the snow. Went down to kind of a clearing to where you could see the valley, the Ogden Valley, or Ogden, Wasatch Front, and then over to the Ogden Valley, so over Huntsville, Eden area. So just as we got down there and started setting up our cameras, the skies cleared just enough, and as you can see from this photo I'm going to share, if you're not watching this, it's helpful to watch this on YouTube so you can see the photos I'm talking about. The clouds parted just enough for about 20-30 minutes for the Milky Way to come out. As you can see, it just kind of frames the Milky Way, the core of the Milky Way, perfect. So this is a photo that I got from that night, and I was pretty excited about it. Turned out really great. I loved it. I had a lot of people that liked the photo and shared it and things. And it was, I was happy that it was possible, but I still wasn't happy that I wasn't up high enough on the mountain. Fast forward a couple of weeks, we had just got a couple of new interns at my work. So these guys were from the Midwest, from Chicago, Illinois, Indiana area, I believe is where they're from. And so they came out, and they were super excited about the mountains. They don't have mountains out there, and so they were like, yeah, let's go hiking, let's do all the things. So I think this was like the second or third weekend that they were here, and I convinced them, because they were younger, a little bit more in shape than my brother and John at the time. I convinced them. I said, hey, you guys down for going up and hiking up on top of Ben Lomond, and so I can get this photo? And they were like, oh, heck yeah, we're down, let's do it. So I think that week they had hiked Malin's Peak in Ogden, and actually up past Malin's Peak and up to, I think they might have actually gone up to Mount Ogden, up to Snow Basin or something. But they did a big loop like a couple days before, or the day before. They had done Angel's Landing earlier that week, and so they were starting to get used to the altitude, and so they were kind of building up their lungs. But they hadn't done something like Ben Lomond, which was a much longer hike and very strenuous. And so, so we started on this. Hike. They started a little bit ahead of me. I had to go and do some things, and I was like, I'll catch up to you guys. So I ended up hiking most of the trail to myself, up to just above the switchbacks is I think where I caught up to them. Anyway, so we get up there, and we hiked, and it was all in snow. There was still a bunch of snow everywhere, so it felt like we were doing some serious mountaineering in the Alps, or in the like we were climbing Everest or something. I mean, we were just dying. We were like, we need oxygen, like almost on our hands and knees, just like, just one foot, take a breath, another foot, take a breath. I mean, we're all kind of out of shape, but so we get up there, And we kind of set up camp on this ridge, and it just wasn't, I mean, it wasn't really a campsite. We just kind of, they found a kind of a flat spot for their sleeping bags and sleeping pads. They brought bags. They were wise. I didn't. I didn't bring a bag. I brought a sleeping pad again because my last time I slept on just a sleeping pad and I stayed warm. I had some snow pants and some thermals and stuff, and a snowboarding jacket. So I was pretty warm when we got there. I thought I was prepared. So we hiked up. So we set up camp and we hiked up to Ben Lomond Peak and watched the sunset from Ben Lomond Peak. Took some photos from there. Got some great photos. It was this trip. I tell people this was the perfect photographer trip. The sunset had some great clouds. There were some great colors at sunset. And then after sunset, the skies cleared out, so the stars came out, and it was great. It was just perfect. And then the next morning, the sunrise had some clouds move in and provided some nice colors for that. So after sunset, we went back to camp. We ate some food. I don't remember what we ate. Probably some like ramen noodles, or probably cooked up some, beef and chili mac or something like that. I don't know, or lasagna. And anyway, so we were just hanging out, talking. We kind of built this little fire in the snow. And up there at that elevation, there's almost no wood. So we were really scavenging for any type of wood. And so it got dark, and I was helping one of them, Kendall Oliver. He had a camera that he had used for some travel stuff that he did. So I was kind of showing him how to shoot the Milky Way, and they stayed up until I don't know, maybe 12 o'clock or something like that. And they were like totally wiped out because they've been traveling all week long and doing a bunch of hikes. So they kind of crashed. And so I stayed up, and I thought my goal was to just take pictures all night. And so I took some time lapse of the Milky Way. And while the time lapse was going, I kind of fell asleep by the fire. And as I fell asleep, the fire died down with what little wood we had. And it was pretty windy and cold. And I remember waking up, I don't know, it was probably 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock. I remember waking up just like shivering violently. And I could just feel my body was just so cold that I was just shaking so bad. I had slid off of my sleeping pad, and I was like laying on the snow, just like shivering. And I opened my eyes and I thought, I'm going to die. I'm literally going to die right now because I'm so cold. I've never been that cold in my life before. So I knew I had to get up and I had to do something. So I jumped up and I like ran up. I had my clothes on and everything. I had my snow boots on. So I jumped up. I like started running up the hill. I was doing jumping jacks. I was running in place. I was like swinging my arms and just like running up and down this hill and just trying to get the blood going. So after, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 minutes of moving around, I finally warmed up enough to where I wasn't like shivering cold anymore. And meanwhile, these guys are like laying in their sleeping bags, just like, I don't know, as toasty as they can be. I think they maybe got cold a little bit here and there, but they're in, nice sleeping bags on sleeping pads. I think they were laying on rocks too, and I was laying on snow, so that didn't help, being cold. Anyway, so when I got up, I realized, I was like, wow, the Milky Way full arch is overhead. It looks amazing. And I was like, guys, you got to wake up. You got to wake up. This is so cool. You can see the full arch of the Milky Way. And so they kind of, I think one of them peeked out of their sleeping bag and was like, oh, that's cool. And went back to sleep. And I was like, man, you guys are missing it. So anyway, so I was shooting around and I thought, I got to get a cool panel of this. So I went up, just walked up, I don't know, 10, 15 yards above our little campfire or little camp where it was. And I took this and I took a couple back and forth of these panels here. And as you can see in the photo, you got the fireplace, you got Kendall and Patrick sleeping around the fire, missing the beautiful scene. And then you got Ogden, you got the Arch of the Milky Way, you've got Ogden Valley, and to the north, to the left of the photo, you've got Cache Valley. So it's this full 180 degree, probably plus or minus 10, 20 degrees arch of the Milky Way of what I was able to see that night. So it was just this really cool, surreal experience that I don't think many people understand, that that once you get above that kind of that layer of light pollution, you can actually see the stars above that. And I didn't realize that until, again, the first trip that I went. I thought, wow, you can actually really see the stars above here. And then the second trip, I knew it was possible. And then this final trip was like, it was the culmination of those two trips and this idea that I had to go shoot this pano shot from Ben Lomond Peak. So it was really cool that happened, and I got that shot, and I went around and I was taking some more pictures, and this was still 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so I had a whole bunch of time left to kill for the night. So I set my camera back up for another time lapse, and I shot some time lapse and kind of played around with the camera a little bit more, and then I just literally got so bored, I got so tired of like running in place and trying to keep myself warm that I went and scavenged some more, whatever I could find, branches between rocks. I was like scrambling all up and down the face here, which is not a good idea when you're on the face of Ben Lomond. If you've never been up there, it's like just steep and it's just loose rock and just it's a sketchy place to like wander around in the middle of the night to try and find branches and stuff. So I found enough. I mean, I probably found maybe a dozen little branches, this, a foot, 2 feet, and just skinny little things. Somehow, I don't know how to this day, I was able to keep that fire going, because I would literally just lay by the fire, just put one little branch in there and just blow it just to where there was enough flame, and it was, 4 to 6 inch flame, and that little flame kept me warm the rest of the night. And so the next morning, these guys were still sleeping, and I couldn't sleep because I didn't, I was cold, and the sun came up. I was like, hey, there's some clouds. I'm gonna go get some sunrise pictures. So I hiked away from camp a little bit and went to kind of the north face of Ben Lomond on the backside, and you could see Willard Basin, Willard Peak, and the Cache Valley to the north. So I went over there and took some pictures of the sunrise, and with some actually great clouds for sunrise. This photo here, that again, if you're watching YouTube, you'll see this. If you're not watching YouTube, hop over to the link to watch the YouTube so you can see some of the photos here. This was one of the photos that I got, and I actually submitted this into the KSL photo contest, which, if you're not familiar with, if you're not from Utah, KSL is one of the local news channels, and they have this little photo contest thing where you can submit your photos, and they share it on the air, and people vote on it and whatever. They have weekly and monthly winners. So I submitted this photo, and I ended up being one of the weekly winners. So they sent me a print of it. I've got it hanging in my office at work. So I got some great sunset pictures. I got the Milky Way picture that I'd been wanting to get for 6 or 7 months, and I got some great sunrise pictures. So that's why I say it was the perfect photography trip. But the story doesn't end there. So as these guys woke up, they I don't know if they even went out and took pictures. I think they slept until the sun came up and was warming up their 0-degree sleeping bags or whatever they had. So we ate breakfast, and then we decided to hike down. And on the hike down, one of the best parts of hiking up in the snow is sliding down in the snow. So we rode down from I wouldn't say the peak, but not too far from the peak. We rode down on this snow, and I had brought this purple shovel that is my avalanche shovel. And I flipped that thing around. I sat on that, and I slid down and just booked it down, and it was a blast. That's one of the funnest things that I love about hiking in the snow, is bringing a shovel in and sliding down. So, and those guys, I think they pulled out their sleeping pads and rode down on their sleeping pads, and that was great fun riding down. I think I was recording myself with my phone, and I dropped my phone and ended up like flipping and spinning. If I can find the video, I'll add it here and show you guys what what that looked like. And so we got back to the cars after the hike back down. Great trip. I got home, stitched the photos, edited the photos, and I posted that photo. Essentially went, I'd say, Ogden viral. I don't know how many shares and comments and posts and stuff that I got from that, but what happened is it ended up getting somebody had reshared it, and then like Visit Ogden had reshared it, and a couple other local pages. I think This Is Ogden, but Only in Ogden shared it. And then I got an email or a call later that day from somebody, a lady named Janet Muir. She was actually working on putting together a dark sky park, which is an International Dark Sky Association. They've got parks or areas, refuges, reserves, things like that. They have different namings for the different types of areas. But they're working on getting a dark sky park certified for North Fork, which is, in the photograph, it's the dark part to the left before Cache Valley. So it's this nice little pocket of dark sky that is adjacent to Ogden Valley, but it's still dark enough to see most of the Milky Way. And as you can see, well, from the photograph, you can see a good bit of the Milky Way. So she reached out to me and she was like, this is the exact kind of photo that we're looking for to help us get our certification and help us kind of market towards the IDA as well as the county and the state, all these other different organizations to get the North Ogden Dark Sky Park certified. And so she reached out to me and was like, hey, would you let us use your photo for this? And at that time, I was actually really into the dark sky movement. I really wanted to make people aware of, and mostly a lot of it due to this photograph here. The first trip and the second trip was like, hey, I want to make people aware that you can get to these beautiful dark sky areas, 10-15 minute drive, up the canyon or up over the North Ogden Divide from Ogden. So I was all on board. I told her, yeah, let's do it. What do you need for me to get this? To use this for your submittal to the IDA and the state and the county and all the other different things. So they ended up using that photo for some marketing material. It ended up being a pivotal point or a key photograph to get the IDA certification. It was a huge benefit to them, and I'm proud to do that. I didn't do it for any pay or anything. It was just something that I was involved in. I wanted to make the general public aware of this, and so they kind of adopted me as the official photographer for the North Fork Dark Sky Park, and it was the first in the world dark sky park adjacent to a metropolitan area with such high pollution as the Wasatch Front has. As you can see from the photo, as you get down to, you can see Ogden, you can see kind of the city lights, street lights and stuff, but as you get further down to Salt Lake, it's just completely blown out white because it's just, the light pollution is just ridiculous there. So I think Salt Lake rivals is similar to like a Las Vegas or Los Angeles as far as like a downtown light pollution. So it's pretty bad. But I think photographs like this make people aware of the night sky is worth preserving, and I'm just really glad. This is, like I said, this is one of my favorite photos, and I just love that people were so wowed that something so cool could be seen so close to home. And I know tons of people that have hiked this peak, and they do it in the day, or maybe some of them have done it at night or early morning, and they see something like this. And now they can say, okay, he captured it in a way that, that I kind of remember seeing it, or maybe it's a little more surreal than they remember. So that's the story behind this photograph. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening to this. Be sure to follow me on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher. I'm on there. YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like, comment on there. If you listen to this podcast through Instagram, be sure to comment on the Instagram post and let me know that you listened along. Give me a comment if you have any comments about it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.